During each season, crappies display a tendency that makes them reasonably easy to find when conditions get tough. They tend to drop into basin areas. During spring and summer, this often is into some of the deepest water in a relatively shallow portion of a body of water. During winter, though, they usually use some of the deepest water available.
Here we go. Got him. Wow. And you know, fish they can seem like they're just incredibly unpredictable, and yet we know enough about all of these fish that they're also predictable, at least up to a point. And by that I mean, you know, with crappies, you know, we know where they're going to be when they spawn. We don't know specifically always where they're going to be, but we know approximately where to look. And it's the same in the wintertime. These fish, you know, it's just like clockwork. They drop into basin areas on the various lakes. And it doesn't make any difference if it's a Canadian lake like we're on right here, or if you're on a stick marsh in Florida or on Lake Fork in Texas. They drop into basin areas. And by that I mean they move out of the shallows and they just drop deeper. Beautiful fish. And they school up, and everything kind of drops into these basin areas simply because that's where the warmest water is. Now when you go looking for these basins, I think the most important thing is that you can't just go looking for deep water. You know, what we've got here is we've got giant shallow bay, another giant shallow bay over here, incoming creek about 2 miles away. This is crappie habitat all through here to begin with. And so when winter comes, actually when fall starts, it drops to about 50 degrees, these fish start to filter from the back ends of these bays, maybe 18 to 20 feet they're holding, and these fish drop into 30 and 40 feet of water. That's what we've got here, 36 feet where I'm fishing right here. There we go. Oh, it's a beautiful crappie. Look at this. And again, what happens when they get into these basins so often is that, you know, the crappie does not move fast. And they get into school sometimes, sometimes not, but they kind of drift. And you can get onto a hole and you'll have a lot of fish in the vicinity of that hole. And then you'll go 10 holes and you won't have anything going. So you gotta practice mobility once again when you're crappie fishing. And right now, the other thing that's really been vitally important is this spring bobber tip. You know, earlier I always start very aggressively when I'm fishing. So I usually start with a spoon instead of a horizontal hanging jig, but not always. But this is what's been necessary. It's just a little tiny jig. I've got it tipped with Berkeley Gulp, and I'm letting it down to the level of the fish. I'm pretty much just dead sticking, just letting the spring bobber tell me when the fish actually takes it. And if they don't show any interest, I'll jiggle it just a little bit and get them to come up. So let's see what goes on here. You got some fish going anyway. Well, look at this. Is this beautiful? Look at that. 1.5 pounds right there, man. Take a couple of those home for dinner.